at Surah Al-Insan, if you look at Surah Al-Sajda, Surah Al-Insan, you find that many of the same concepts are mentioned in both surahs. One of the things that I wanted to point out is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Surah Al-Insan. Allah ta'ala, He says, وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. And He rewarded them because of how they were patient with Jannah and Harir. And so this ayah, the Prophet ﷺ, is one of the many verses of the two surahs that he used to recite every Friday. And when you think about it, you find that in it is a message that Jannah, the reward of or receiving of Jannah and being allowed to enter into Jannah requires sabr, requires patience, which means that there's going to be some effort, there's going to be some sacrifice that is necessary. Because in order to get Jannah, you have to have sabr. Why do you have to have sabr? Because of what Allah Ta'ala has commanded. Especially on Fridays, in the middle of the day, because throughout the week, a person is working during the daytime, he's busy making his money. Then on Friday, has to be some level of sacrifice. He has to stop his working, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly mentioned the tijara, the prohibition of buying and selling on the day of Friday, at the time of Jumm'ah. Because that's going to require some effort, it's going to require some sacrifice. A person leaving off his job, leaving off his means of making money, putting that on pause, to come down to the Masjid, to listen to the dhikr, that's going to require some effort, it's going to require some sacrifice. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in this ayah from Surah Al-Insan, and the Prophet ﷺ used to recite this every single Friday. This ayah, along with many other verses, and as we mentioned, you can't just think that this is just haphazard, or this was just random. The Prophet ﷺ knew what he was doing. And as we mentioned time and time again, that which the Prophet did ﷺ was revelations. He did what he did because of the command of Allah. And so there is in these two surahs meanings that Allah Himself and the Prophet ﷺ, they wanted us to ponder over. I'm saying that this is just one of the verses. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. And He has rewarded them. And the people of Jannah will be rewarded with the Jannah. They'll be rewarded with the Harir. They'll be rewarded with the ittikat, or the reclining on the couches. They'll be rewarded with the rivers and springs because of their sabr, because of their patience. And so Jannah is not something that is inherited because of what our fathers did or what our forefathers did. Jannah is earned because of what we used to do. Jannah is something, it's a reward for our efforts. It's not a one-to-one reward, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a shakur. He's the appreciative for and He rewards the fact that we put forward the effort. And we strove and we struggled and we sacrificed for His sake. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards those believers, rewards those who put forward the good deeds with Jannah. And so we don't just sit back and we pull out our ID card and say, look, I'm Muslim because I'm a believer, and think that's going to be our ticket into Jannah. But rather we're going to need to sacrifice, especially on this day of Friday, the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us to congregate. We have to sacrifice, and we have to show our efforts, improve our efforts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we want the reward that Allah ta'ala has promised the believers in His book. So that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those who will be entered into Jannah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us and guides us. May Allah accept from us our good deeds and our righteous actions. May He overlook our faults and forgive us of our sins.